Hi. Hello. I must be losing some weight because my shirts are getting too big for me now. I've got like 65 articles and a lot of audio up on Substack. I will continue to upload a lot more because I do have a lot more. The only problem is finding time to do everything in the day. Here's a true story. I've been trying to take a vacation now for half a year. And I should have known it, but prices to Key West, which is the only place I really wanted to go, because I don't need a car rental. You could just walk around everywhere and take it easy, because I can't stand to drive. They're just too expensive, and for some reason, I check every other day. For some reason, must have been a cancellation or something, it popped up like $2,000 cheaper, because the prices had doubled. And I bought it, but I had to borrow money to put it on a card, money I don't really have, pay it off over time. And then I went back to cancel it because it said you have 24 hours to cancel the trip, and about 5 or 6 hours later, I don't have the money for this. And I went back to cancel it, my trip to Key West next week. And, well, I could cancel the flight and get my money back, but 85% of the cost is the hotel, and it's the cheapest hotel imaginable. I know the hotel, never stayed there. And so, well, you can cancel your hotel, but we're not going to give you a penny back. So I'm forced to go, unfortunately. I tried to cancel it because I don't really have the money to go, but I desperately want to go. Just take a few days off, eat cheap street pizza, just do a lot of exercise, walking in the sun, maybe rent a bicycle, just pedal around the island, well, the southernmost part of the island anyway. I don't have the time or the money to go, but I guess I'm forced to go because I couldn't cancel the hotel. By the way, I hope you appreciate the videos and articles that I do. I have basically 9,000 videos, and I write lots of articles, do a lot of translations. I'm continuing to do translations. I've some articles coming out, the ones that you've been asking for on retroduction. I would have been done now if I wasn't so busy. So any donations always warmly welcome. I greatly appreciate that. That's in the description of this video below. And I really do greatly appreciate that. If you can't, that's fine. I get it. Everything I do is free, including many books and countless articles. They're all free on Substack and also to the description below. I enjoy live streams. I never go into live stream, by the way, with any idea of getting a single donation. They're not monetized, and I always delete the live streams later. And I do 3 to 5 of those a week. Usually they last between 2 to 3 hours. And I just do it to talk with you all. And sometimes I get inspiration for videos to make. There's oh, I've not discussed that topic. And just bouncing ideas off of people and talking with people. So here's a picture, and this is taken in darkness. You ever seen you drop a rock in the water, and you have to watch it in super slow motion. You get this. Everybody's seen this in some sort of slow motion video form. Here we actually have the transverse waves, and of course the medium is the water. And of course this is presuming you drop something in the water like a rock. You're creating a disturbance in the medium. You're disturbing something. Kind of like if a dog is sleeping and you come up and you do something extremely unprofessional and the dog gets angered and then it does something. You're disturbing the water, which of course in this case is the medium. And there's a surface tension on water, of course, and there's the elasticity and density of the medium. That is the water. Have you ever slapped, everybody has when they're younger, you smacked your open-faced palm against the water really, really fast, and of course it hurt. And we don't consider water as being, painful to interact with. It is if it's ice, right? There's another great example, but everybody's done an open-palmed contact with the water at high speed, and it hurts. So this is the elasticity and density. That's not just surface tension. You could actually take away the surface tension by putting some soap on water and to reduce the surface tension, but you still have the elasticity and density of the medium. So you actually see this rarefaction. This, by the way, where we're, to simplify, this non-existent photon particle. And this is all about the fact that this has to end, this type of atomism. Everything actually goes in cycles, and it has an ancient past. There are Greek atomists, just as what everybody's living in today is atomism, and it's wrong think. You start out with your hammer, everything is a nail. You know, that's a nail, that's a nail, that's a different kind of nail. If you actually start out with this wrong think and you're predisposed towards incorrect ideas, nonsense, then you're going to process everything through that. Yeah. So this rarefaction of the water, where the water droplet pops up, this is where we get the idea of the photon particle. Light is a coaxial circuit, and coaxial circuit is not complicated at all. Most people don't know the cross-section of a piece of coax. You have an insulator, and then you have the outer braiding, and you have the center conductor. And everybody thinks a signal passes through the center conductor, and that's really not true. You should look up something online. It's called air coax. When you actually have thousands and higher watts of power, like in TV stations, it has to pass through this special type of coax that's designed for ultra-high power. It's called air coax. Air coax is really simple. You should see a cross-section of it. It's in my book on magnetism, which is also too in the description below, which is totally free. It's a copper tube that's suspended inside of another larger copper tube, and how it's suspended, and it has nothing to do with the power or the electrical circuit, it's suspended by this corkscrew of plastic. Yeah? The plastic isn't interacting or has anything to do with the transmission of the super high power transmission. It's called air coax. Yeah? So the center conductor is literally the air. So this idea that electricity, because everybody has been brainwashed by atomists, by the way, into this idea that the power lines flowing in your backyard, front yard, wherever, you know, have electrons flowing through them. Well, Dollard and others poo-pooed that idea. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. You have an induction coil X number of distance away from it, and don't ever do that because it's not safe to do that. And you'll actually get a charge, electricity, off of that. It's like, well, there's nothing there. I mean, you can suck all the air out between you and the power lines. You're still getting a charge there. There's a neat one. The power lines are very high power lines. Very high. It's all over Instagram. A guy opens up an umbrella. You know, the skeleton inside of an umbrella, a rain umbrella, is made of wires. He shows you the power lines are they're like, I don't know, 2,000 to 3,000 yards away. They're way up in the sky, too. Very, very tall poles. But when he opens up the umbrella, just the power induction, you can see that the interior skeleton of the rain umbrella is sending out little discharges. So this idea that electrons are flowing in power lines or that light is composed of photons is absolutely ridiculous. This actually plays into everybody's life, and I'm going to talk about this here very quickly. See, actually, simplex wireless power induction disproves this idea that, because if you ask anybody in academia, say, excuse me, sir, I know you have a PhD in field theory, and you know, yes, I do. Is the flow of power the flow of electrons? Yes, yes, it is. Well, how does wireless power induction work? Or wireless power induction in a vacuum? He said, well, you know, in that case, it's lines of force. You know, lines is conceptual abstraction. Force is not a thing. Force of what, by what, upon what? That's not explaining. Well, it's lines of force. It's fields. Excuse me, sir. No branch of academia has ever defined the word field, so you're going to have to try again. By the way, this is a 1928 interview with Nikola Tesla. Famous prophet of science, looks into the future, Popular Science Monthly. On the whole subject matter, in fact, Dr. Tesla's views are startlingly original. He disagrees with the accepted atomic theory of matter and does not believe in the existence of an electron, as pictured by science, and this Tesla says, to account for its apparent small mass, science conceives the electron as a hollow sphere, a sort of bubble. Such a bubble could exist in a medium as a gas or liquid. Anyway, my ideas regarding the electron are at variance with those generally entertained, meaning everybody else, which is the exact same position held today. I hold that it is a relatively large entity, you know, carrying a charge, and it is not an elementary unit, i.e. a particle. When this principle of the electron leaves an electrode, of high potential, and in a high vacuum it carries an electrostatic charge many times greater than that of normal. By the way, the person who actually discovered the principle, he even said, which is J.J. Thomson, he said it wasn't a particle, he called it 1 unit of dielectric induction. That's J.J. Thomson. This is C.P. Steinmetz, way smarter than Nikola Tesla, by the way. This is electrical discharge of waves and impulses. Unfortunately, a large extent in dealing with dielectric fields, the prehistoric concept of electrostatic charge, or the electron on the conductor, still exists, the idea, the brain rot thereof, and by its use, this idea, the use thereof, destroys the analogy between the two components of the electrical field, the magnetic and the dielectric. Getting back to our simple little diagram here of water, the transverse waves in the medium, of course the drop is also to the medium. Now this is where academia is so messed up, because when you actually try to complicate nature, you are being, well, I want to use a certain word, but I'm trying not to use it. You are slandering nature itself. I mean, these transverse waves of the medium is what science will say, well, is the electromagnetic waves of the light circuit. And that little particle in the middle, oh, that's the photon. It's like all of this is the water. I wouldn't ignorantly say if I dropped, and if we could see in slow motion, you drop a rock in the water, you get the same thing if you snap it at a certain spot, right? I wouldn't say, well, this is the photon, and over here we have the transverse electromagnetic. We just have different modalities of the same medium. Because everything, and that's what light is, we have this different field modalities, and all fields, as I've accurately defined, the first person on Earth, you're welcome to define a field, which is an ether perturbation modality, is just different elasticity and density field modalities of the ether. So this is the light circuit. If I actually replicated this picture and stacked them top on top on top, we'd have a frequency, and we'd have the circuit of light. That makes Mother Nature really simple. This way you could explain it to somebody that's, you know, say 10 or 13. It makes it really, really simple. All of this actually has to end. The idea of atomism and separation. You know, if aliens, advanced aliens, landed today or tomorrow, they'd see that human beings believe in all these imaginary particles, we haven't defined a field, and we think we're separated. And we're not. And they'd also, too, first recognize, if they were genuinely advanced, that we haven't unified anything. We haven't unified nature to its fundamental core. Now, the grand unified theory, or the gut, from Nikola Tesla, the closest Nikola Tesla gets to this, is Nikola Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, you need to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. This is extremely accurate, but I could simplify it a whole lot more. Well, vibration is frequency. When you say vibration, you're talking about a modulation of something. Something is vibrating, that vibration has a frequency. So the frequency of vibration, and it's like saying wet water. Yeah, well, you're talking about the same thing. All frequency, of course, by the way, is a blinking torus. All frequencies. All electromagnetic radiation is a blinking, non-demonstrable, non-existential or empirical blinking torus of energy. Its propagation, the reason why it propagates is because the medium of electromagnetic radiation and of all fields is, of course, the ether. The reason why it propagates is the elasticity and density of the medium causes this disturbance to cause that disturbance, etc., etc., etc. Same thing with, you know, somebody splashing their arms in the middle of a pool. They're generating, they're not emitting anything. Nothing emits light, which superficially sounds so crazy and so heretical, and yet it's undeniable. Yet 100% of the two-legged critters walking on this planet think that light's an emission. It's not an emission. It's a wave, it's a particle, it's a wave-particle duality. It has a speed, which is c. We call it c. The speed of light, 186,000 mph. It's not the case at all. It's not the case at all. That's the hysteresis of the medium. The hysteresis of the air, of course, is what we call the speed of sound, but nothing emits sound. Sure you are, you're emitting sound right now, causing vibration on that microphone you're wearing. I'm not emitting anything. I'm creating a disturbance in a medium, that of course being the air, composed of oxygen and nitrogen, which is propagating out. That speed, and of course it changes depending on the medium, how dense the air is, you know, based upon its temperature, because the speed of sound is not constant, but it's not a speed. We all are brainwashed into that, and if we could unbrainwash ourselves to that, and it's really hard because we're so used to saying speed of sound, speed of light. Speed implies something's moving. Well, nothing is moving in the case of sound, or in the case of light. Well, sure it is. It's been measured. Speed of light, speed of sound. It's not. Nikola Tesla told you that light was a sound wave of the ether. Not in the ether. Because there's not ice in the water. Like if you see ice cubes floating in your water, it's not ice in the water. You know, ice and water are the same thing. Hysteresis of the medium. This is the rate of induction at which the disturbance occurs. When you generate waves in the water, the frequency and the propagation, of course there is a maximum propagation of how fast waves can actually travel, but they're pistons in the water. They're not actually traveling, but if we look at them, they appear to be traveling. When anything has a speed, it's obviously moving. That's not the case. A person flapping their arms in the middle of a pool is not moving at any vector relative to the wave propagation. This is what Nikola Tesla accurately said was the ratio between elasticity and density. Now that ratio, in this case of light, is called C. Speed of light. Well, it's not a speed. It's the ratio between elasticity and density of the medium. Mother Nature really is that hairy armpit chick. She doesn't have a calculator and everything's really simple. When we make things obtuse and complicated, we're slandering nature itself. We all have this idea that we're not connected. I am me, and you are you, and this isn't connected over here, and the homeless guy down the street holding up the sign begging for a couple bucks is not connected to me. Everybody's so worried today, and I know why, because everybody's just so focused in like a laser, just like I am, trying to make ends meet and pay the bills. There's a million things we should care about, but we don't care. The reason why we don't care is like, well, does it pay the bills? Does it feed my family? Does it pay the bills? Feed our family? I do get that. I'm not aloof in some sort of ivory tower that I can't see what happens out in the world. I am right out there. You know, I tried to cancel my vacation because I can't afford it. It's like, I can't cancel it. I'll just lose all my money. It's like, well, now I got to go on vacation. It has to end. This idea of atomism, of separation. What you and I are living in right now is a dystopian age of relativity and quantum nonsense. I was watching an old episode of The Orville, which is made by Seth MacFarlane. It's like a funny version of Star Trek. It's called The Orville. I don't know if you've heard it. And every time they turn on the engine of the spaceship, it says, "Engage quantum drive." Captain, we've entered quantum. There's no such thing in nature as quantum. Julia also say, and I'll see it in the comments, so you can't say electrons don't exist. I didn't say that. Nikola Tesla said that, but maybe you think you're smarter than Tesla. How would you define that in an electron microscope? Electron microscopes are real, therefore the electron is real. Well, that is extremely flawed logic. If you were to accurately define a so-called electron microscope, and of course they do work. Well, how does it work? If electrons don't exist, Mr. Smarty Pants! Easy. I'll call you what it exactly is. It's an electrostatic reflectance imager. You should also, too, look up what a gold sputter chamber is and why all the non-metal-based biological so on and so forth have to go into a gold sputter chamber. Why do you think it has to go into a gold sputter chamber? To change its permeability and permittivity to an electrostatic bombardment, which of course must then be reflected and imaged. It's electrostatic reflectance imager. It has nothing to do with this imaginary electron. I could call my microwave an electron heating device or a quantum heating device. That doesn't give reification to the term quantum or to the term electron. People always ask about the dual slit experiment. I've made several videos on the dual slit experiment. They continue to ask, are the lines underneath the ferrocell? It's like, where do the lines come from? Well, everywhere you see light, you see constructive magnetism. Everywhere you see the absence of light, you see destructive magnetism. The lines themselves actually prove the ether. There's a million things. I need to make a video and a list of the countless obvious things that prove the ether. Not that the ether needs to be proved, except, of course, to an atomist. Constructive and destructive interference. If you want to know the secret to all of nature, natura naturans, you know, the simple chick that is Mother Nature that doesn't have a calculator, it's explaining it is easy. If it's more complicated than 2 plus 2, then you've slandered nature itself. I mean that literally. Constructive and destructive interference between the magnetic and the dielectric. Magnetism is not something different than the dielectric. Magnetism is a dielectric field. We have words like ice and water. Well, we know they're both water. I'm telling you right now, ice and water are no different than talking about the magnetic and the dielectric. Magnetism is the centrifugal three-dimensional force vector that is the dielectric field. When you actually change the nature of the dielectric, you have a different field. That loss of that energy or inertia of the dielectric manifests as the three-dimensional force vector, which in full 3D extrapolation is a torus. This is the geometry of force itself, the torus. The anti-geometry, or the inverse geometry, of the magnetic, which it always, this is the reason why there's no straight lines in nature, always curves back to, just like that supercell. You see that black hole in the center? Everything curves back towards that vortex. I could even eliminate out the word vortex. A vortex is a half a torus. Yeah? You take two vortexes, you put them together with the pointy parts right there, you have this neat little geometry. It's called the hyperboloid. Yeah? The negative geometry of this hyperboloid, or this hourglass shape, is the torus. The negative image of the torus is the hyperboloid. That's the yin and the yang of the whole universe. The torus and the hyperboloid are one and the same thing, just as ice and water are one and the same thing. All of nature is connected and simplex beyond belief to the point that it will make you get on your knees and cry. But nobody's willing to look at that. And the people in academia, I have a PhD in astrophysics. How dare you? Who peer-reviewed your works? Mother Nature did. She agrees with all of it because it's all really simple like her. It doesn't require math. It only requires the understanding of simplex pressure mediation. Centrifugal, centripetal, force and motion, or inertia and acceleration. Constructive and destructive interference. The dual slit experiment becomes really simple, but it starts out with 8 false suppositions as to the nature of light. That it's a wave-particle duality. I saw something in that Orville TV show today when I was eating my bean and ham soup. Bean and ham soup. They were talking about empty space. Well, saying empty space is like saying wet water. Space is not a thing. It has no properties. That's what Nikola Tesla said over and over and over again. It is not a thing. When you have space, then you have time. When this is present, then that is present. Neither one exist. Sure, they exist. Well, here's the simple answer. Time is a measure of masses and magnitudes. A measure is not a thing. A gram, a mile, an inch, etc. These are not things in nature. These are concepts, agreed upon standards dreamt up by men. Unintelligent men, unintelligent earthlings, of which I am not one. Just kidding. Or am I? Space doesn't exist either. Space is a shadow. Shadow is not a thing. A shadow is an absence of something, that being light. Human beings are caught up in atomism and all these ideas and believing in things that don't exist. The primary ones of which are waves, don't exist. Waves of what? Space, time, shadows, emptiness, no such thing. Chaos, quantum is not a thing at all. Negative charge, completely ridiculous. You could say discharge node. An electrical ground should be called a counterspatial node or a discharge node. I mean, there's no such thing as a negative charge. It's completely ridiculous. That's like saying a shadow is a negative light. Like, what the hell you... Whoa, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? Saying negative charge is like saying negative light. You mean a shadow? Yeah, a shadow is negative light. What? What? I'm sure there's some PhD academician out there that's got a book that says, well, a shadow is just, it's a negative light. Like, what? How dare you? I have a PhD. Don't question me. Force, electrons, photons, virtual photons, which is my favorite, something that not only doesn't exist, it radically doesn't exist. multiple dimensions. Of course, people get that from watching science fiction movies like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse and all this other nonsense. And all fundamental particles are a high capacitance threshold light, several magnitudes above that of gamma radiation. All atoms, therefore, are nothing other than hydrogen compounds, which of course is undeniable. Even the folks of academia would agree to that. Compounded hydrogen. That makes it simple, doesn't it? All of this has to end. The idea of our separation from you and me and this and that. You know, the homeless guy in the end of the street, nature. You know, I'm going to wall myself off in a compound or a castle, and I'm going to live my life, and you're going to live your life, and I'm going to stare out the window with my binoculars and, you know, laugh while you trip on your own driveway and, you know, eat my popcorn. You know, just all it's done is breed a whole lot of misery in this universe, our world specifically is what I'm referring to, that it doesn't have to be there. By the way, all vectors in space are inevitably, this is the reason why there's no straight lines in nature, curvilinear. Curvilinear just means not straight, you know, curvilinear. That's a neat kind of word nobody uses anymore, really. All these things that we believe in that don't exist. I should have added to the things that don't exist, I should have added Sky Daddy. What Nikola Tesla said when he's talking about the secret of the universe in terms of energy, frequency, vibration, he might as well just said emanationism is the secret of the universe. Energy is ether, so, you know, we combine frequency and vibration, which is just frequency. You know, energy is just the ether. So principal attribute, energy equals ether. This is all principal attribute. A vibration of a principle. The principle, of course, is energy, like light and illumination. Principal attribute. Not two things, one thing. Magnetic dielectric. Not two things, one thing. Ice, water. Not two things, one thing. Energy, you could put vibration and frequency right there together. Frequency, of course, only defines capacitance. The higher the frequency, of course, the higher the manifest capacitance. So the secret of the universe, or the grand unified theory from Nikola Tesla, is basically, even though he didn't know it, is emanationism. Principal attribute. Frequency / vibration and energy. You're talking about principle and attribute, like light and illumination. Light's the principle. Its frequency, i.e. vibration, is its attribute. Not two things, one thing. Absolute connectivity in pure, pure, pure simplicity. And simplicity is divinity. I hope you like these videos and the articles that I write on Substack and other places and the live streams I do. Any donations always warmly welcome. Lux et veritas. Have a lovely week. Thank you. I need to go pack for my vacation that I can't afford to go on. At least the weather will be nice, presumably.